So, hello everyone for this event in the ICF Saudi chapter. This event has been brought to you by our partner, Berlot Group, and we are today having our wonderful Linda Berlot presenting today resolving team conflict and improve performance. So, a little bit of introduction about Linda. Linda is an entrepreneur, executive, and certified team coach, a PCC coach, and ORSCC with over 16 years of experience in team dynamics and change. She's the founder and the CEO of Berlot Group, our wonderful partner at the ICF Saudi chapter. She's leading a team coaching organization licensed to provide ICF accredited coach training across the GCC region. She empowers leaders and coaches to become effective team coaches. Linda also serves as the Director of Learning and Faculty Development at the CRR Global. She specializes in multicultural team coaching across the Middle East. Linda helps executive leadership teams strengthen the relationships and enhance team dynamics. Welcome, Linda, today.
Thank you, Rasha. Thank you for that amazing introduction. It's such a pleasure to be here, and we're thrilled to hold the partnership with the ICF Saudi. Thank you for inviting us to speak here today.
It's always a pleasure.
Shall I dive right in?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Thank you. So before we start, I am super curious to know where everybody is from. So I wonder if you could put in the chat, just where are you from? It gives me, an opportunity to hold the globe. Wow, we've got the UAE, Saudi, Iran, Jeddah, Riyadh, Egypt. Wow. Wow. Beautiful. Thank you. So welcome to all of you across time zones. I hope that this evening, when we talk about resolving team conflict and so that we can enhance team performance, that this is interesting to you. And it's all about alignment. I have a presentation for you, and I want to just pop in and out. I would very much like it, though, even though I've got some slides, because I know some of you will find the information interesting. I would love for this to be interactive. So I won't speak and only at the end ask questions. I will pause every now and again and ask some questions if that's okay. So first of all, do you all see this?
It's clear.
Yeah,
Amazing.
perfect.
Amazing. Thank you. So Russia has done an amazing job of introducing me. I don't feel the need to say anything more about me. If you want to, please feel free to ask questions. And also you did such an amazing job, Russia, at explaining that we do these two things. We coach leadership teams across, well, globally actually, and we run a coach training school, which teaches people to be team coaches or relationship coaches. The model is called ORSC, and we'll talk about that in a little while. In our courses and in our programs, we see professionals from all walks of life across industries. And that's because no matter where you work or no matter what your niche is, we are always in relationship with each other. So helping systems, and a system for us is an interdependent entity with different entities that are interdependent and have a common focus. So for us, when there are interdependencies, what that means is it's a system, meaning do we need each other to work, right? And if you do, there's a relationship there. It's easier to work with them as a unit than as a group of individuals, but we will talk about that in a little while. These are some of the clients that we have felt so privileged to work with. You will recognize some of them, I am sure, and some in Saudi too. Today, really, what I would love for you to do or to walk out or walk away with is understanding the difference between alignment and agreement. And it's because very often what we're trying to do when there is conflict is to create agreement, and that doesn't always work. But where we want to move towards is understanding that if that alignment is always possible, and if we move for alignment, then it leaves a much more creative space for us to find solutions. Look at data that teaches us that the more positivity there is in a system, the more productive that system is. And then also talk to you about some of the ways that we as humans communicate, which are pretty normal, but that they erode positivity and trust. And then look at how do we create alignment? How do we create performance in a team where there is conflict? Are you all in the right webinar? Is there something that you would like to hear a little bit about? I'm taking that as yes, because I can't see everybody. So the first thing that I would like us all to talk about, either verbally or in the chat, is what does belonging mean to you? Like, what does belonging mean to you? And each of us will have a different opinion about that. What does belonging mean to you? Please feel free to speak it out. It would be so lovely to hear your voices. Being an integral part of a group, yes. I'm accepted as who I am and feel part of the group, yes. Feeling that I fit, yes. Being part of something bigger than me, feeling you're in the right place, absolutely. Remembering something even if it's not around you. Beautiful, exactly. So belonging in a team particularly is when team members feel accepted and they can show up at their really best. When they don't feel that there is any prejudice or bias against them. However, in this part of the world where most teams are multicultural, this can often be challenging to create because there are no commonly understood norms. And when there are no commonly understood norms, it leaves the potential for a lot of misunderstanding. And that's when the challenges start to surface. In my country, I'm Italian. In my country, when I raise my voice and I gesticulate, it means that I feel passionately or strongly about something. It doesn't necessarily mean I get angry. Anger is demonstrated in a different way. But in other cultures, when I raise my voice, it means that it denotes anger and therefore creates conflict. So when there are no commonly understood norms, it's much easier to have misunderstanding in a team. And that's why it's important for us to move to alignment. And we are going to talk about that. So there are some issues that arise in teams. Some of these issues, but in multicultural teams, it just adds a different dimension and adds a little more challenge. So very often there are diversity issues, commonly misunderstandings that happen from diversity issues. Sometimes there is resistance to change. Very often there is miscommunication and often conflict, sometimes because of personality, sometimes because of the diversity between us. This will result in lack of alignment, and very often there are silos. So we get called in to work with all of these issues. As team coaches, we work with all of these issues. And you can see that any one of these can create conflict in a team. And what we know is that when there's a lack of alignment, this will impact performance. It has to, because imagine a cart with wheels on the cart. In order for that cart to move forward. All the horses pulling the cart have to pull in the same direction. The wheels all have to face in the same direction. If the horses are pulling in different directions, that cart won't go anywhere. Same if the wheels are wobbling and they're all doing their own thing, that cart won't pick up speed. It's exactly the same in a team. If there is misalignment, it's not possible to reach your goals, or you might reach some, but not others. So before we move on, I just wanted to take a moment to talk about team coaching and what it is, because for us in our line of work, it's integral to the work that we do. So team coaching, in essence, is an intervention that involves coaching intact teams rather than individuals. When I am coaching a team, I coach the team in its entirety. I don't coach the individuals in the team. In this way, it's a much gentler approach. We don't spotlight the behavior on any one individual, particularly not in the beginning. And also for the individuals or the team members in the team, it's easier to change behavior when you have a team supporting you and they are also changing their behaviors. So I always find it useful to talk about what team coaching is and what it isn't. So team coaching is a facilitated process that moves teams from where they are to where they want to be. The coach will use all of their skills, all of their experience, and a series of tools to work with the system and focuses on the system as a whole. It creates alignment between team members and helps them move from where they are to where they want to be. But not only that, it deepens the conversation for team members so that they can address issues that are standing between them. The team coaching will often produce a team charter or a behavioral contract, a communication or a conflict protocol, but something that will create alignment that the team can continuously look at, so like an action plan. What team coaching is not, it's not training in the sense that you don't have a subject matter specialist standing in the front of the room, just downloading information. The team members are the subject matter experts. Yes, there is some education, of course, but the team members are mostly involved. The role of the coach is to mirror, to ask powerful questions and help the team see itself so that it can make different decisions and take different actions. So it's not one-to-one coaching. So we're not individually coaching the individuals. It's not counseling or therapy, although it may feel like it, because we do talk about emotions. Sometimes it gets emotional and there are emotions that are displayed in the room, but we're not going back in time trying to understand why team members have certain behaviors. We work with healthy systems, whether they are a couple or a family or a team, and we help them move forward. It's not team building in the sense that it's not a fun day out where we build a boat, we have lots of awareness, and then nothing happens back at the workplace. With coaching, whether it's team coaching or individual coaching, behavior must change back in the workplace. Otherwise, it's not working. Any questions about that?
Linda, I have a question around that. Can you please tell us the difference between team coaching and group coaching?
That's a great question. So team coaching is when it's an intact team and there are interdependencies between team members. When I coach a team where there are interdependencies, it's easier to help them hold accountability towards each other. And they can also, hold each other accountable. So I hold myself accountable, but I also hold you accountable. Why? Because we need each other to do the work. In group, there aren't interdependencies, so they can't hold each other accountable. What I would do is perhaps work with them in the same way, but instead of designing agreements where they hold each other accountable, I would do a lot more self-accountability. provide the participants a moment to integrate the learning and design action plans for themselves. They could buddy up and then support each other in that way. So it's very different in the accountability piece. Does that answer your question?
Thank you. It does. It does. Thank you.
So the model of team coaching that we use is ORSC, and I think many of you must have heard of it before. It was the first systems coaching model to be accredited by the ICF. Now there are many other schools, of course, created by Marita Fridhorn, who at least one of you on this call knows very, very well, and Faith Fuller. These amazing ladies are part of CRR Global. And they were integral in bringing this model to the world. And what makes it different is that everything we do is when we're working with the system is to encourage emotional intelligence, systems intelligence, and relationship systems intelligence, which is the trademark of this model. And relationship systems intelligence is really the ability that we have to know that we are in a system, and to know that everything we do or don't do impacts that system. It's almost like we have the ability to see that there's me and, oh yeah, there's you, but I can take a helicopter view and see that there's a relationship there or a team there or a dynamic there. Couples understand that very well. Couples know that over and above me and you meeting each other's needs, we also have to take care of the relationship. We have to go on dates. We have to have chats. We have to do all of the consensus reality pieces to keep that relationship alive. Otherwise, it will die. But that isn't usually translated to teams. Teams don't usually think about the fact that there's a team and it's an entity of its own. And therefore, the team members need to take care of not just each other, but the team as well. So in the work that we do with them, that is a muscle that we are wanting to develop in them. Those of you who like data and percentages, I thought I would leave this slide here. I don't really want to go too much into it because it's known, and also you can take a photo, but we can also send you these slides after the presentation. We'd be happier to do that. I would rather spend time talking about what is alignment, how to create it, how to work with conflict, and then give us some time to work together in that way. Would that be okay?
Great.
So first of all, who knows what alignment is? What is alignment? Whoop. Anybody, what is alignment? I wonder if somebody could read to me I can see the chat if somebody could read me the messages.
Yeah. So there's a purpose. Lori says a purpose.
Alignment is a purpose, yes.
Oksana says agreement.
Agreement. Alignment is not agreement.
Okay.
And we're
Zainab
going to
says,
talk about, we're
sorry.
going to talk about exactly that.
And Zainab says being at the same page with other team members.
Yes, being on the same page as other team members. Yes.
And
Someone
Salman
else?
says looking in the same direction.
Looking in the same direction is great. Oksana, here's what I want to say to your comment, and thank you very much for saying that, because that is the common understanding, is that in order for us to align, we have to agree. But agreement sometimes is very hard to reach, particularly when we've got very polarized positions. So alignment is not agreement in the sense that alignment is about moving away from polarized positions to a place of common interest. So, for example, some divorced parents might be fighting about how to raise the children, but they can align around wanting the very best for their children, right? So if we start from the place of alignment, very often we can let go of our polarized positions. It's about creating a win-win, and it's about moving away from it's not my way or your way, but it's our way that includes both of our ways. And we believe that alignment is always possible if there's a desire to find it. But very often what happens is we get so entrenched in our positions, and that's what causes the conflict, by the way. It's because I believe that I am right, and therefore so for us, it's truly about, can we put that down? Can we put the need to be right down? And can we find a place of common interest? How's that sound, Oksana? Sorry, could you repeat that? I can't hear you. I heard you briefly. Pleasure. Okay. So, any questions about this? So finding alignment isn't always that easy because very often our values are involved, or we feel very strongly about a topic. And when in a team, when we feel strongly about a topic, what do we normally do? We either fight each other, or we gang up and we marginalize the voice that is unusual, or we try and convince that voice to come over to our side because we believe that that voice is wrong. And that isn't alignment. That is trying to coerce somebody to come over my side. But if we do that, we miss the value in the voice that we want to shut down and marginalize. So from our perspective, there are skills that we need to teach ourselves and the teams that we work with, so that there isn't a need to kind of convince each other, but we can sit and hear each other and value each voice in the system. So how many of you know John Gottman, 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work? No. We use that as a resource very much, and we extract from the book, even though it's for couples, we extract from the book the data that is also relevant to teams. We work with teams, but many of you maybe work with couples or relationships or families. So this information is relevant for any system. And we extract the data that is good for teams because we know that other parts of the world, there were other people in organizations researching teams, and they found that the information corroborated. And so that's why we present it here, and I'll show you the data after that. So John and Julie Gottman are professors, and they've been researching married couples now for over 40 years. And they became famous not just only because their books, but because they put willing married couples in what they call love labs. And the love labs were like bed and breakfast, and they would monitor them. And I think within 15 minutes and a 97% accuracy, they could tell that couple whether they were going to stay married, happily married, or divorced. And it is exactly the same in a team. So what were some of their findings? They found out that the couples that stayed happily married were relationship masters, and they did certain things in common. And the couples that eventually divorced they called them relationship disasters. And there were also some things that they did in common. And it was not about the amount of fighting or not. It was truly about the quality of the relationship and some of the habits that they had. And this, what we will see now, is what erodes positivity and erodes trust in any relationship, actually. So in order to prevent that from happening, John and Julie Gottman said that relationship masters focus on creating positivity in the system at a ratio of 5-1. This is a constant creation of positivity. And how do they do that? What are some ways that you create positivity either in your teams or in your relationships? How do we create positivity?
active listening, empathy, showing that you care.
Absolutely.
Give them a hand whenever they need it.
Offer help, yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening, taking time to truly listen to someone and make them feel heard and understood creates positivity. Yes, absolutely. What else?
There's also in the chat Salman saying explicit gratitude and celebration of each other.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate you.
And
Yes,
Shahad is saying recognition, appreciation.
recognition,
Lori is
appreciation.
saying,
You know,
yeah.
have any of you read the... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying the other,
Please do.
chat. So there's also, okay, so Lori's gratitude, positive acknowledgement, and Zainab acknowledging each other's situations and needs, and Lori added again small win celebrations.
Ways and in small ways. And sometimes it's the micro connections that create positivity, right? And oh, I was going to share something that went right out of my head. It will come back to me. It's the micro connections that cause positivity, right? So it's almost like we want to make deposits in our team members' emotional bank accounts so that when there is like a bit of conflict or some misalignment and a withdrawal from the bank account, it doesn't have such an impact. But if there is very little positivity and you make a withdrawal, the impact is much harsher. So constantly, consistently increasing positivity in the team. Increasing positivity during conflict sounds like an oxymoron, but it isn't. So a relationship masters will start any discussion, any challenging conversation with a softer startup. So instead of saying, "Where's that report? Why didn't you get that done?" It's, do you have a moment? Can we have a conversation about the report that was meant to come in or something like that? Any questions about that? You're a very quiet group this evening.
So there is a comment from Lori in the chat. He says that I love the emotional bank account analogy. I use it so often in facilitation.
Exactly. Laurie, thank you for that. You reminded me of the Five Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Do you know them? It's a great little book, and it says that all of us in a relationship, there are 5 different ways that we express love. I can't remember them all offhand, but it's giving gifts, words of affirmation, quality time, physical touch, and there is one other. And all of these need to be present in a relationship. But we, of course, as individuals, we have preference. The challenge is that usually we do to others what is our preference. So let's say, for example, words of affirmation are your love language, and giving gifts or receiving gifts is my love language, and we're in a relationship. I will continuously give you gifts because that's my love language. You will recognize it and appreciate it, but your love tank will never be really full until I start giving you words of affirmation. And that little magical book comes in a team version as well. So 5 Love Languages in the Workplace, I think it's called. It's a beautiful little book that teaches you how to increase overall positivity and during conflict. Another way that you can increase positivity during conflict is to understand, see, and give or make repair bids. A repair bid is an attempt to soften the emotional field after there's been a fight. And relationship masters recognize them, and they also feel comfortable giving them. So a repair bid could be like, "Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I really messed up." That's an overt one. But it could be as subtle as eye contact or, do you want a coffee? Or did you see the weather today? Those are all attempt to soften the emotional field. Now, notice that a rejected repair bid is more damaging than the original argument because the person making the repair bid is making themselves vulnerable. And so there is a way to recognize and receive the repair bid, or to recognize it and honor yourself if you're not ready and say, thank you, I see what you're doing. I'm not ready yet. Let me come to you when I'm ready. So you honor the other person's repair bid and you also honor yourself. Now, the challenge comes when it's a multicultural team, because what works in one culture doesn't necessarily work in another culture. And so it's important as team members to learn about each other and to kind of create agreements on what that might look like. Any questions about this? Acts of service, that's right. Any questions? Okay. So the other thing that relationship masters do that's really important in any relationship, but in particular to teams, is to decrease the negativity during conflict by decreasing communication toxins. Now, the word toxins sometimes is quite aggressive in certain cultures and in certain teams. These are unskillful behaviors that we all do. We learned them at home from our parents, who learned them from their parents. Because a constant diet of these are going to erode any positivity that lives in the team, or indeed any relationship. These toxins are defensiveness, and we'll talk about them in a little while. Blame or criticism, stonewalling, and contempt. Defensiveness is really, it's not me, it's you. Blame is you. Stonewalling is passive checkout or passive aggressive, and contempt is, like eye rolling or belittling someone, backstabbing, those kind of things. Any questions?
So there's a
Very
comment
clear,
in the
I'm
chat.
enjoying.
Oh, okay. So Lina, go ahead, please.
No, I'm enjoying, mashallah.
Yeah.
I'm
So-
happy to hear.
Great. Thank you, Lina, for enjoying this. And there's also Ghada saying in the chat, sarcasm. This might be,
Sarcasm.
yeah.
Contempt. So sarcasm, yes. Sarcasm is a form of contempt. And we'll deep dive a little bit. Absolutely. And sarcasm in some cultures, it's cultural, and in other cultures, it's experienced in a very toxic way. So we'll explore some of these. So this was John and Julie's research on how to maintain positivity in teams so that when there is conflict, it's easier to move away from the gridlock. Then across the world, other people, Fredrickson, Lasada, Heafy, they were all doing research on teams and came up with the following research. So high-performing teams focus on creating positivity. And this is not what we call toxic positivity, polishing over everything, not dealing with challenges, saying everything is fine when it's not. We're not talking about that type of toxic positivity, which is toxic because it puts a polish over it hides what's really there and doesn't really acknowledge the emotions or the feelings of the people that are in a different space. What we know is high emotional intelligence, social intelligence create high-performing teams. So in high-performing teams, when there is conflict, they take turns, meaning they don't speak to each other. This is very challenging as an Italian when we can have 7 conversations at once. There is an acknowledgement for the other person's point of view. Like I can acknowledge and yes, I can see why that would be important, and I can understand why that would make you feel a certain way. There is empathy for each other, even though we might have different points of view. And there is curiosity and advocacy for other people's positions, meaning I can still hold my point of view and disagree with you and be curious and actually advocate your position. What they found is exactly what John and Julie Gottman found. Toxic communication erodes team performance and increases employee turnover. So therefore, it's important to evaluate the amount of toxicity and support with more skillful communication. And this is where team members can help each other, because if I am doing something that is toxic, my team can help me and can, in a non-threatening way, highlight to me when I'm being toxic and help me change my behavior. It's easier in a team to change behavior than it is as an individual, because we can support each other and we're all on the same journey. If one team member refuses to change or cannot change, that's when executive coaching then might help. High-performing team create conflict protocols before conflict happens. And this is what creates the alignment, right? These are behavioral contracts that the team designs so that we can create win-wins, so that we can talk about what's good for me and what's good for you, and we can all align on a way forward together. How are we doing? Let me pause. Any questions so far?
I have a question.
Sure.
So, what can be supportive for us in the acknowledgement part? How can we train ourselves to acknowledge each other's thoughts and emotions?
There is a beautiful model that I love from Daniel Dennett, and he teaches you to really listen. Listening. So you and I can have very different opinions and we can stay in a healthy debate. And the way to do that is to be curious. But when you talk to me, for me to really receive what you're saying, and in 3 steps. Number 1, demonstrate understanding of what I've heard. So I just need to repeat back what I've heard you say and ask you, is that, give me, share something with me, like a small sentence. Hello?
Yes. So, something I'm thining about, you mean?
Just
Okay, or
share
opinion.
an emotion or like how you're feeling about a particular situation.
Okay, so I'm feeling a little bit curious about team coaching and about how it really supports other team members.
So Russia, step number 1 is to demonstrate that I'm listening. What I'm hearing you say is that you're quite curious about team coaching and how it supports team members in teams. Is that correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah. Well, you're here, and so I can totally understand that if you're here, you would be feeling curious and a little bit excited to learn about this. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything more?
No, I think I'm good.
So I demonstrated the second step. The second step was having empathy and understanding for the emotion that you express, or maybe you're not expressing that I can feel. And you express being curious, and I added, you must be somewhat excited. But I always check in with you to see if that's okay, if I'm on the right track, right? So the first step is repeat what I've heard. That will make you feel heard. Understand or demonstrate empathy and connect to the emotion that you are feeling. The third step is to share what I'm learning about you. So, Russia, what I think I'm hearing is that in this small paragraph that you've shared with me, is that you are curious about exploring team coaching and how you may take this forward to help team members. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, it is correct.
Okay, so that's number 3. Step number 3 is, what are you learning about the other person? What are you learning is important to them? What are they holding dear? And only once you've done those 3 steps is it then your turn to express your point of view. And when you slow the conversation down long enough to do that, so I hear you say, I understand empathy for the emotion, and here's what I'm learning. Does it calm the situation down, slow it down? And in this way, we are hearing each other. If we're doing it to each other, we can demonstrate hearing. Does that answer your question?
Oh, yes, yes. Thank you so much.
So, Laurie, the book is called The 4 Steps to Arguing Intelligently by Daniel Dennett. And I love that model. I think it's transformational. In couples therapy, they call it couples dialogue. Couples dialogue. And I like it because, sometimes we're in such a rush that we hear 3 words of what's being said and we respond to that, or we shut our ears down and we say, I hear you, I hear you. But saying the word, I hear you, doesn't make anybody feel heard. Using the words, I understand, has never made anybody feel understood. Right? We really, in order to make somebody feel understood, we have to name the emotion. Yes, Rada, lovely to see you. 4 steps to arguing intelligently. That model is life-changing, life-changing. I
So
love
I would like
Russia.
to check something. Yeah. So what I'm hearing is that start by acknowledging people's thoughts and emotion by saying that I'm listening to this emotion, I'm naming this emotion, and I'm adding a little bit of what I'm understanding to the statement. Before jumping into explaining the situation I'm in or being defensive or anything else.
That's
Just
right.
being, okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's right. And what this is actually an antidote to defensiveness, because defensiveness, you know, and we'll go into the team toxins in a moment, but defensiveness is one of the hardest to eradicate because people feel so justified in explaining their point of view. And of course, they are justified. But what makes it defensive is when the defensiveness happens. So I tell you, the report was not in on time. And you become defensive when you say, yes, but we didn't have electricity and our Wi-Fi was out and all of this. At that moment, that's when it becomes defensive, right? But if you pause the conversation, demonstrate your hearing, feel empathy for how I'm feeling, and then share a little tip of how you think what you're learning about me, then the situation calms down. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yes, it does. It does. It seems that Donald is loving this as well.
Good.
He's
I'm
saying
happy to
that
hear.
listening and responding to 3 aspects: data, facts and views, feelings, empathy toward the emotional space, and values what is important to the speaker or speakers.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. And if somebody is frustrated, and you should try this. Try this with somebody who's very emotional and frustrated. I was once coaching a team, and they were they are a C-suite leadership team, very young, very fast-thinking, fast-paced, and of course, coaching is unusual for them because I'm not moving so fast. I'm asking them questions. I'm wanting them to think about the answers. And one of them got frustrated with me. He said, "You're just trying to squeeze us into your construct." I was trying to teach them this model. You're just trying to squeeze us into your construct. So I said, "May I try something with you, please?" And I went ahead and just tried the 3 steps of the Daniel Dennett. And it was like a deflated balloon. I asked him, "How are you feeling?" He goes, "Well, yeah, I feel totally heard and understood," which was very, very sweet. And he then became the champion of this model in the organization because he experienced it firsthand. People get frustrated because they either don't feel heard or they don't feel understood. So the frustration boils and they people shout or raise their voice because they don't feel heard. So if you literally just repeat back what you've heard them say and then connect to their emotion and their values, it kind of takes down the energy of the challenge or the conflict. So here are the toxins. You can see criticism and blame, defensiveness, stonewalling and contempt. The Oscars on the group will recognize these for sure, but it's always a good refresher. So let's go through. What does criticism mean? So the toxins are the gold words. The words in black underneath truly are just examples. Criticism could show itself in many different ways, but aggressive attack, harsh startup, domination, overly driving, words like why did you, or you always, you never, this is considered blame. And it's toxic because it makes the person the problem rather than the behavior. Defensiveness is a refusal to take responsibility for the part that that person played in the dynamic. They don't take ownership. It's not my fault. It's the Wi-Fi. It's the doorbell. It's the whatever it is. It's not their fault. Victimization. I'm always wrong. Of course. How can I help it? What can I do? I've got no power. They are also very stubborn, not open to influence. They won't allow new information to go in. They don't allow themselves to receive feedback and be guided. And so it's almost like a shell or a wall falls down. Defensiveness is toxic because there's a refusal to take ownership or responsibility. And yeah, stonewalling is really when we check out for whatever reason. And we all do these things for many different reasons. These behaviors were born when we were little and we didn't have words. They are unskillful behaviors. So there's a disengagement or a pulling away, passive or passive aggressive behavior. I ignore you and I go over the chain of command. Or if I perceive that somebody has more power than you, then I won't come to you. I'll go straight above your head, or I'll do what that person says rather than what you say. Withdrawal, avoidance, ignoring. I might be talking to you and you continue on your laptop, or I might be talking to you and you continue with your game. Or I've sent you an email and you say, I ask you, did you receive that email? And you say, no, what email? It's really ignoring. So stonewalling is toxic because you step out of relationship and the person feels abandoned, and the message they receive is your voice or your opinion is not valuable. And then we have contempt, which could be very subtle. It could be something as subtle as, or really, again, oh God, this is typical. Or sarcasm, cutting others down, undermining, disrespect, rudeness, demeaning communication, eye-rolling facial expression, and or gossiping behind people's backs, or making fun of people in public. And when they say, please don't do that, it doesn't feel very nice. Its contempt is toxic because it really undermines the humanness of the person. Yeah, it breaks people down. Any questions about these? We all do these, by the way, and different relationships will call up different ones different ones in us. We do them more or less, and we all do them because we're human, but they are unskillful. And when we do them, we are not really being adults and in control of our behavior. These are reactive tendencies that we learned when we were little or smaller, when we had less less ability to speak and say what we want or how we feel. So when we're working with the team, these are the things that create conflict. You can see that if somebody goes into a discussion a little bit harshly, it's going to create defensiveness. If there is, aggressiveness, it will create defensiveness. If someone is defensive, it might bring out criticism or blame, or it might incite contempt. And when there's contempt, it might incite stonewalling. So call up stonewalling. So in 30 seconds, all of these can be present. And this is when conflict happens, when we've stopped hearing each other, stopped listening to each other, and we've moved into these types of behaviors. So when we're working with the team, we introduce these to the team, exactly as we are doing here. We ask them, how do these show up in the team? What are some examples? We have them own them a little bit, and then we teach them what to do instead of these toxic behaviors. We teach them more skillful ways of behaving. So these are the antidotes. Criticism and blame. So instead of criticizing, use a model to give feedback. And there are many models to give feedback. COIN is just one of those models. So it could sound something like this. The context is yesterday in the workshop. Observation, I noticed that you were texting a lot and you were walking in and out on your phone. The impact on us was that it was quite disruptive, but also I was worried. I didn't know what was wrong. Why did you need to move in and out? The next is, what would we like to do next time? So next time, please let me know that you will be moving in and out of the workshop. A soft startup versus a harsh startup is giving the person an opportunity to brace themselves or to know what's coming, right? It doesn't feel like an attack. Could you explain to me what happened? Or I noticed that the laundry was not hung the other day. Can you help me understand why not when that was an agreement? Or, it's a softer way of starting the conversation. Soft startup encourages a more gentle ending. Harsh startup encourages a fight. Feed forward. Aren't we so good at telling the person feedback, what they did, what they did? And so giving people feedback is great. It's a gift. But sometimes they don't know what to do with that. Right. Okay, so I know I messed up. Now, what would you like me to do? So the feed forward is truly the ability that we have in telling people what we'd like them to do next time. And then actually, curiosity and questions should be an antidote for all of the toxins. Under defensiveness, remembering that no matter how much I don't like what you're telling me or what feedback you're giving me, and no matter how you are giving me that feedback, there is usually a small percentage of truth to what's being said. So instead of being reactive, if I am curious and ask about that, I can generally have a more connected conversation. And then practice active listening could be like, for example, the Daniel Dennett. Is that a question that popped up? I thought I saw something in a chat.
Yes, there is Lori is asking, due to this conflict, does team coaching also require some training in mediation?
Not mediation. We don't mediate, but we do conflict resolution coaching. So conflict management coaching, which I will share after this. And there are tools where we get people to, we sit them in a room. Mediation is keeping people separate, and like for a divorce, for example. So I ask you how you're feeling. I ask you how you're feeling. I ask you what you want. I ask you what you want. And when the emotional field is softened, then I put you together. Maybe I never do. But remember, we're not coaching the individuals. We coach the system. And so we keep the system united as we resolve the conflict. through the toxins. So one of the other toxic ways that cause conflict, one of the other ways that we behave that causes conflict is very, very often stonewalling, checking out. And this is disrespectful because the person speaking feels disrespected. They feel like abandoned. If you are a stonewaller, remember that you are a voice of the team. Speak up. Your voice is valuable, right? Please use transparency and state what you feel. So it doesn't look like this conversation is going very well. How about we call a timeout? Or maybe I'm not feeling very comfortable. Or yeah, I'm not feeling very comfortable. Can we just take a break or talk about something else and come back to this? And if there is a huge power imbalance is normal in a team. But if it's so big where there is so much fear that people can't speak, it's better than to get mediation or bring in a third party. Contempt is toxic because so when John Gottman looks at these are the predictors of divorce, by the way, but when he sees contempt, this is the one where he stops the research, because contempt is, for example, name calling, really it attacks the person and it breaks down the person at a very individual level. So when that happens, our immune system starts to get low and we get sick. So we say that contempt causes physical illness in the receiver, certainly, but also in the person who's giving it. I thought I saw a question. Are there any questions?
In the chat, no.
Oh,
Yeah.
every now and again the chat lights up for me. So let me pause that there a moment. I'd love to hear from you in the chat. Which is your favorite? What do you do best? Are you brave enough? And you might do it very mildly. You might do it more actively. And we're also not saying we don't do this all of the time. These are really those moments where we're triggered and we lose our ability to be in our skillful self. Thank you, Donald. Stonewalling, defensiveness. Ziba defensiveness, stonewalling. Thank you. Stonewalling, defensiveness, stonewalling. All. Thank you, Salman, for being honest. Contempt. Thank you, Ghada. Mine is blame. And if I stay in blame very long and somebody stonewalls me, I go immediately into contempt. We all have them. We all do them. And the trick or our journey in life is to learn to minimize them, and by doing more skillful behaviors. But when we are with a team, what we want to do when we want to de-escalate conflict, so when the conflict is hot, first we want to manage the conflict. And there are certain steps to managing the conflict. The first step is to get people to ventilate. And there's a difference between venting and ventilating. So venting is when I just continuously talk about you and you are the problem and he did this and she did this and she and he and she and this action and she and he and I can't believe it. It's like a verbal bleh, right? That is not helpful at all. Venting, on the other hand, is staying on your side of the fence, explaining what happened, but truly owning it. So when the situation happened, I felt disrespected. I felt I would have preferred. So it's really owning the issue from your side. So when we're venting, that is exactly what we're wanting team members to do. We're wanting them to talk to the coach, not to each other, because that might escalate. We're wanting them to share how they feel. So I felt dishonored, or I felt disempowered, or I felt disrespected, or I felt alone. And when team members hear each other, generally that's when the gridlock or the heat starts to dissolve, right? The skill uses certain techniques, and that is to demonstrate where the team members are feeling, where they are aligned. So it could be, wow, I really can hear that you're both frustrated, or it sounds like you're in the same boat with this, right? So continuously revealing where there is alignment. It sounds like you both want out almost like a pressure cooker. You know, those old-fashioned, well, maybe not so old-fashioned. I don't have one in my kitchen. I'm too afraid of that thing. But it's like the pressure cooker, no? And you release the valves and it releases the pressure. Psst, 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 until there's no pressure. So that is the purpose of the venting. Once the venting, the heat has gone out of the conversation, now team members can answer the questions like, why is it important to resolve this? You know, what would be beneficial if you resolved it? What do you know that you're already agreeing on? Right? And these questions start to show the alignment between them. And then we have this magical step, which we call putting the problem out in there. We take a physical object, let's say a box of tissues or a phone, and we make this the issue. And we make the participants hold it and then place it on the table in front of them or on the floor in front of somewhere out there, letting them know that they are not the issue. The issue was stuck between them and they could put it out in front. And they now become a team facing the same direction. Together, they can resolve it. And what we're wanting them to do is to move away from those polarized positions, to brainstorm possible solutions on an aligned way forward. How does that sound?
So it's more like, visualizing stuff and putting objects as this represents this and this is that.
Yes, well, in a way, the venting is real. They're talking about how they're feeling and what they're wanting out of the topic. Because remember, it's conflict. Conflict will either you'll get called in to work with conflict, or you'll be working with the team and conflict emerges right in front of you. And so you have to work with it. You have to vent the emotions there and then. When they're calm, yes, you use like a visual aid that represents the issue. You get them to name the issue. It could be planning or miscommunication or parenting. It could be anything that's been stuck between them. And if they visually can see it out there, they start to feel more aligned between them. They now start to feel, okay, well, it's there, it's not gone, but we together can resolve it. So they can problem solve together. And that's what you're wanting them to do. So they can create action steps on the way forward. Does that help?
Yes, I think I understand this even more,
I just want to add something that I use this technique while I do.
Lena, you've used the technique?
Yeah, I use the technique with teams and teams also in relationship. So it's worked very well because it ends up of laughing, throwing that objects, on each other. And if they are aware and they get the aha moment at that time, okay, this it's all because of I didn't understand your feelings. I didn't respect how do you felt, So we hear this talk, this conversation between them. And actually, it is an amazing, and sometimes I use it by telling them, draw something, how you can see this conflict.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful.
And you start to hear more of metaphors also as well while they are talking during the conversation.
Sounds like you're doing amazing work, Lena.
يعني alhamdulillah, sometimes. sometimes.
I'm sure you are. And working with conflict is not easy. It requires a lot of courage and skill, right?
Yeah, but also it needs a lot of awareness from the other parties, to understand their selves very well, and to start understanding how I can speak the other language. Because if
Absolutely.
I will speak only my language without speaking the other's language, we are not on the same boat. So the other one, he will feel that I'm not heard, no one's hearing me, no one's respecting me, no one's understanding my feelings, and no one's also maybe love me or respect or whatever other feelings can come. So yeah.
Yeah. And then when people are in conflict, what they believe is that you are the problem. And you believe I am the problem, but actually, if we help them see that it's not the people who are the problem, there's an issue stuck between them. And if we
Yes.
move out in front, it frees them to be able to work. To have you on the call. So once we've heard from team members and we've got them to work through the conflict, we've educated them about their communication, the toxins or the unskillful behaviors, let's put that way, the unskillful behaviors that they're bringing to the table. Now we help them create behavioral charters or communication and conflict protocols. And this is truly magical because you're helping them design a way that you're helping them design what's acceptable and what's not acceptable in the team. And then they can check in on these charters and hold each other accountable. So here. So in the charter, we're talking about what are the behaviors that are acceptable during times of conflict, what are behaviors that are no longer acceptable, so we want to listen to each other, we want to use Daniel Dennett. What's not acceptable is we don't want to interrupt each other. We cannot raise our voices, whatever works for that team, and each team is different, right? And then how will you hold yourselves and each other accountable for the agreement? So, for example, I will I take ownership. I will ask for a timeout or pour myself a glass of water. Great. So everybody holds themselves accountable. But also, how will we hold each other accountable is just as important. So in my team, we've got a light, non-threatening way where if the conversation starts to get a little, off track and we're not comfortable, we use a post-it note. And this is just to let people know that people are feeling uncomfortable. We're walking on thin ice. Why don't we cool down and maybe call a timeout? And so you want teams to have a light kind of way to hold each other accountable. The teams I've worked with, they have code words, they've got gestures, hand gestures. They have, I remember once I was working with a global team and the Dubai team invited the wider team to Dubai. And of course, when we are in this part of the world, we take them out for, Arabic foods, and the drink of choice is lemon and mint. And the foreigners had never tasted lemon and mint and they loved it. And so lemon and mint became their code word. So if people were being unskillful, it was a lemon. And if they were more skillful, it was mint. We want more mint. We want more mint rather than the lemon. And so teams design for themselves what works for them and what doesn't. It's not a policing exercise. It's more like we're helping each other. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, and if I will allow me to add something else, it's always good to remind the team what is the purpose of this team.
What is the purpose of the?
What is the purpose of this team? what they are doing, what's the purpose, why they are aligned together, why they are there, why they are
Absolutely.
working together. So it's always to remember, it's the purpose, it's not the people, it's the
Right.
purpose.
Right. So we're here on a mission. And
Exactly.
and it's important to remember that when there's misalignment, we can't achieve that mission. So either fall in line or there's a problem.
Exactly.
So when I was planning this presentation, I thought that we could put ourselves in breakout groups, but I'm looking at the time, so we won't go into breakup groups, but we will have time for questions and answers at the end. So in conclusion, when we're working with conflict, a certain amount of unskillful behavior is normal. However, remember, if there's a high level of positivity and then there is one or two little amounts of unskillful behavior, it has less of an impact. But if there's very little positivity and trust, and then you have toxicity, then it's much more impactful. Relationship systems intelligence is what skillful leadership teams want to move towards, or skillful teams. And that is the belief that there's us, but there's also a team, and everything we do or don't do impacts the team. So let's make it a positive impact and let's hold each other accountable for that. Creating behavioral contracts like a team charter or communication and conflict protocol is important because it helps align the team in one direction. Don't ignore conflict. Don't put a positive polish over teams. Sit in a conversation. They hear each other. They use models like Daniel Dennett to really create listening and understanding. And they don't shy away from sharing their points of view. When teams are honoring their voice and honoring each other's voices, even when it gets hard, they're able to work through to the other side. And just sitting in the fire and working through it actually is what creates trust and positivity. When we don't have the conversations, or when the conversation is toxic, that's what erodes positivity. Are there any questions? Any questions anybody might have?
Linda, I'm just curious because in the beginning, when you said that team coaching is for healthy teams, is there a point where you felt like this team is, I'm not gonna be able to coach? Like, what is the level of
Yeah.
toxicity or some negativity that will not allow a team coaching to happen?
Yeah. So for me, a certain level of toxicity is normal, and I don't see toxicity as a reason not to coach. There are some red flags, absolutely. So there are some situations that have called me to raise the red flag and stop the coaching. Number one, they can be lovely and not so toxic. They might even love the team coaching, but if behavior doesn't change back in the workplace, team coaching is not the solution for them. Maybe they need something around emotional intelligence or an educational piece or something different altogether. Maybe they need DISC or something else which helps them increase their self-awareness before they can look at the team and focus on the team. Maybe there is such a high imbalance in power that there's so much fear that people can't really speak up. That would be a reason to stop the coaching or suggest something different. If the team, if they are so toxic that they're just absolutely not changing, But what I meant by a healthy system, meaning, sometimes I've worked with couples and they were well-intentioned, and no matter what we did, there was still a lot of drama, and they were still, still very hooked. maybe one of them had an active mental illness that wasn't being treated, or a substance abuse that wasn't being treated. These are situations where then I would refer them to a professional because as a coach, it's very important to remember that our competence begins and ends at a certain point. And there are other professionals we can refer to that can be more helpful sometimes.
Thank you. This is very helpful.
Good. Ghada, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Good refresher. Any other questions? So if there are no more questions, that's all the information I have to share with you. I've been absolutely delighted to be sitting in conversation. Talking about conflict is a topic that is so close to my heart, and one that I am committed to continuing to work with, because conflict is normal. It emerges between us. It emerges between us because of our personalities, because of I woke up from the wrong side of the bed on the one day. I'm feeling tired. I'm less skillful than I normally am. Culturally, we do things which we don't understand. We step on each other's toes. It's, there's so much diversity between us, even if we are the same culture. Conflict is part of our being in relationship. How we do conflict is whether it builds us closer or it tears us apart. And for me, when we can learn to do conflict in a healthy and skillful way, even though it feels deeply uncomfortable sometimes, that is when we start to heal. We heal the pain from our pasts.
Yeah, I do have a question, if I may. It just came up, which is, what are some, let's say, practical tips you would give to a person new to team coaching? Maybe kind of the typical pitfalls or something.
So in terms of team coaching as a whole, or with conflict?
Coach shows up, or how the coach shows up, and maybe sometimes, practices that in other contexts might be very useful, but actually very useful.
So the first is be prepared. Be prepared. So design your coaching, or be clear what you want to address. We usually, when we work with a system, we would have assessed them first. So we know what the areas for development are, and also what their strengths are. So be prepared, and also be prepared to throw that out the window and just be fully focused on the team and go the direction that they want to. Very often new coaches create agendas and timelines that are so tight that don't allow for spacious conversations. So the whole objective, even if you address one topic in the workshop, let the team really discuss it in depth. Don't rush that process. Don't be attached to your timeline. Be really present with the team and be in service of what's emerging for the team. The second thing I would say is be brave. Be brave. And remember that you are a mirror to the team. The team sees itself through your eyes. You use your body as a signal for what they may be experiencing. So if you are feeling uncomfortable, name it. So my body, I'm feeling so uncomfortable. How are you guys all feeling? Or, gosh, what I notice is that every time we have a deep conversation, a joke gets plopped into the emotional field. What's the impact of that? And then I would say the third thing is really don't advise or try and fix anything. There's nothing for us to fix. They have all the answers themselves. And that's what I mean by being healthy, is that they are resourceful. And if we hold them as resourceful, we facilitate the process where they can come up with the solutions they can own. Does that help?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Pleasure, Salman. Ghada.
while you were talking and towards the end, what came up to my mind is how do we introduce, because we talk about conflict and bringing in the conflict in the space and dealing with conflict in a healthy way. But what often happens, especially in our Arab culture, our region, is that we are pros in avoiding conflict and avoiding confrontation. So how is it that we're going to be able to, because that's the one challenge that always comes up, to
Yeah,
create that ambiance, to invite them into actually exploring that space of
yeah,
conflict, and that it's
yeah.
okay too, rather than so. What I'm looking for is a tip on how to break the ice, if you will, so that we can allow that space to flourish in the conflict.
So relationship cultures very often they have a high level of respect. And also I don't want to feel embarrassed or ashamed, and neither do I want to embarrass you. So, we also don't have the very direct communication style that you might find in the West, right? So we say things, but very gently, and it leaves lots of things open to interpretation. It's a slower journey, and if you can slowly pick up on some of the pain points and then ask questions and slowly get them to open. I have the most wonderful example of this. It was such a beautiful process. I worked with a local bank here in the UAE, and they were all UAE nationals, all of, not direct, very respectful, very polite, not wanting to offend, certainly not wanting to offend the leader. There was a high level of respect, and there are deep connections and relationships that are not evident to me, the coach in the team coaching. Sometimes they're families, and so there's all that. So first of all, asking the question, do you want to resolve the challenges between you? And what would be what can we do and what can we not do? So you are clear what areas you can move into and what not. Creating safety and trust is most important. And you do that by when somebody does make themselves vulnerable, by honoring that voice, naming it and honoring it. Or when somebody does speak up a little bit, the edgy, say, wow, I really want to appreciate that somebody's been brave in speaking up. What's it like to experience that? Or constantly maintaining the positivity, even though they may be talking about very hard topics, but it takes longer. It's a more gentle process, and it takes longer. Is that helpful?
Yeah, I'm kind of comparing your notes with what I've seen in the field, if you will. And I noticed that you kind of have to also, as a coach, sort of walk gently around it to ease it for them so that they feel it's comfortable too, and it's kind of okay to, and we're actually going to move forward into some better space.
I'm just putting here a little model that we have. It's called MRAA, MRAA. And really what it stands for is meet the client where they are, not where you want them to be or where they should be, where you think they should be. Truly meet them where they are, not any faster, not any slower. Just hold them in the space where they are and continuously reveal what you are seeing. Because when you reveal what you are seeing, they start to see themselves. And when they see themselves, they can take different actions or make different decisions. And then help them find alignment. So one of the greatest tools that or skills that we have team coaches have is reading and working with the emotional field. And the emotional field is that which is born between any two or more people. And when we put our focus there, it's not making anybody wrong. So an example of that might be, gosh, it feels like something's not being said. or it feels like uncomfortable. What's uncomfortable here? Or I noticed some of you nodding. What was in your nod? And these are gentle ways of inviting them to reveal how they're feeling. And it creates safety because you're not making anybody wrong and you're not putting the spotlight on anybody. And slowly, slowly, they will get over their edge and start addressing issues. Yeah.
Thanks, Linda.
My pleasure, Radha. Any other questions? I've absolutely loved spending time with you this evening. I hope you enjoyed this evening here with us as well. And I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Linda, for today's webinar. Yeah, I really enjoyed it personally. And I think anyone here, let me speak about myself. So, but it seems that people are enjoying it. So thank you everyone for coming today. And you will have this available. The recording will be available on our YouTube channel. And thank you and have a very splendid night today.
Thank you
Well,
for inviting us, Russia. We will happily share the slides as well.
perfect, perfect. So this is double gift. Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great
Thank
evening.
you.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank
Very
you.
much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Masalam. Bye-bye.